There's a moment that visits most of us, often late at night, when the world is still, but the mind is anything but quiet. You lie awake, not because of the noise around you, but because of the echoes within. A memory returns. A conversation. That one thing you wish you hadn't said, or maybe something you never got to say. It circles your thoughts like a bird that refuses to land, and you whisper to yourself, "Just let it go." But your heart doesn't move. Why? Why is it so hard to let go, even when we want to? You're not weak for holding on. You're not broken because the past still lingers. There is a reason, ancient, human, tender, why the mind clings to pain like it's something precious. And yet, there is also a way through it. In this quiet space we share tonight, we'll walk slowly through that mystery, why letting go feels like losing yourself, and what the Buddha saw thousands of years ago that can still light our way today. We won't force anything, we won't chase answers. We'll simply listen to old stories, to gentle wisdom, and most of all, to the parts of ourselves we've kept clenched for too long. Because maybe the question isn't, how do I let go? But rather, what happens when I stop holding on? Let's begin, gently, together. Part 1. The mind that won't let go. Have you ever wondered why your mind refuses to let go, even long after the moment has passed? Even when your heart is tired, even when you know logically that holding on is only hurting you, there's a reason, and it's far older than you might think. It often begins in the quiet hours of the night. The world has gone still, the house dim, the sounds softened into silence. But inside you, something is still spinning, a memory, a conversation. That one thing you said that didn't come out right, the look on someone's face, a silence that followed. Maybe it was nothing at all, and yet your mind won't leave it alone. Like a bird circling the same barren tree, again and again, you whisper to yourself, "Let it go." But instead the thought only grows louder, more vivid, more painful. Why does this happen? To understand that, we have to take a step back, far back, because the struggle to let go is not a flaw in your character. It's not a lack of willpower. It's something ancient, deeply embedded in the very way your mind was built. The Buddha saw this over 2,500 years ago when he said, "The mind is difficult to restrain, restless, alighting where it wishes. It is good to tame the mind, for a well-tamed mind brings happiness." Dhammapada 35, and taming the mind begins with understanding it. You see, the brain you carry was not designed for peace. It was shaped by generations of survival. Imagine a world without homes or hospitals, where danger lived behind every rustling bush and safety was rare. In that world, to hold on was not weakness, it was wisdom. If you found a cave, you didn't leave it. If you found a tribe, you clung. If you found food, you fought to keep it. Letting go might mean death. That clinging, that grasping, what Buddhism calls Taṇhā, or thirst, was the very reason we made it this far as a species. But the world has changed, and the threats are no longer wolves in the woods. They're words on a screen, they're short texts, a sharp tone in someone's voice, an unresolved moment from yesterday, and yet the same brain reacts urgently, irrationally, as if your very life depends on it. It doesn't know the difference between a broken promise and a broken shelter, and so it clings, harder, longer, even when it hurts you. There's a Zen story that speaks to this. Two monks were walking along a muddy road. They came upon a young woman who was struggling to cross without soiling her silk robes. Without a word, one monk lifted her and carried her across. Hours later, the other monk, clearly troubled, finally burst out, "How could you touch that woman? We're monks." The first monk smiled gently and said, "Brother, I put her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" So many of us live like that second monk, still carrying what was never meant to be carried this far. But here's the question that lingers, quietly. If we know it hurts us, why do we keep holding on? There's more to this than habit. There's something the Buddha saw, something hidden beneath our pain, tangled in identity and fear. And once we glimpse it, something in us begins to soften. So let's look deeper. In the next part, we'll explore what craving truly is, not just as a want, but as a wound, and how it wraps itself around even the things that harm us. Let's walk a little further together. Part 2. The craving that hides behind the hurt. It's not the object we cling to that causes suffering, it's the clinging itself. What if I told you that even your pain has a hidden comfort? That sometimes we don't just suffer from hurt, we cling to it. Not because we enjoy the suffering, but because we don't know who we'd be without it. What would remain if we truly let go? It's a strange thought, isn't it? That deep down, something in us wants to hold on, even to things that make us ache. Old regrets, quiet resentments, lost relationships, identities built on struggle. We think we want freedom, but often we're grasping tightly at what's familiar, even if that familiarity burns. The Buddha named this energy tash, thirst. It's not just desire in the ordinary sense. It's restlessness, an aching itch in the heart. The part of us that is always reaching for something else, something more, something different, something just out of reach. He described it in the Dhammapada with such clarity. The craving of one who lives heedlessly grows, like a creeping vine, like a monkey in the forest, leaping from one fruit to the next. One clings from life to life. Picture that for a moment. A monkey never still, never satisfied, leaping, grasping, clutching. That's what our minds do. They jump from memory to memory, regret to regret, grasping for some sense of control, some story to hold on to, even if that story hurts. I once met a woman in her late 70s who carried for over 4 decades the guilt of an argument she had with her younger brother before he passed unexpectedly. It wasn't a cruel argument, nothing terrible was said, but in her mind, it became a wound she returned to like a shrine. "If only I had said one more kind thing," she whispered once, her eyes distant. The truth was, he had never held it against her, but she had built an identity around being the one who failed to make peace. Letting go of that guilt, to her, felt like letting go of the part of herself that still loved him. She wasn't clinging to pain alone, she was clinging to meaning. Can you see how subtle it becomes? We say we want peace, but peace demands emptiness. It asks us to release the stories we've told ourselves, even the ones soaked in love, and the mind recoils. If I let this go, who will I be then? But here is where Buddhist wisdom gently invites us inward. You are not your pain, you are not your past. You are not even the story of who you think you are. Craving wants to keep you safe by holding on. But the Buddha saw that this safety is an illusion. He taught, from craving springs grief, from craving springs fear. For one who is wholly free from craving, there is no grief. So how fear? Dhammapada 216. And so the question arises again, not just what are you holding on to, but more tenderly, what inside you believes it cannot live without this pain? There is something underneath all this, something more instinctive than memory or habit, a reflex so ancient it predates words. And it holds the real reason why letting go feels like erasing ourselves. In the next part, we'll uncover the hidden force of identity and how the stories we tell ourselves silently shape what we're willing to release. Let's keep walking, gently. Part 3. The story that won't let go of you. We are not troubled by events, but by the meanings we attach to them. Why is it that certain memories, though long gone, still sting when they brush against our awareness? Why is it that some thoughts, years, even decades old, still have the power to make us wince, to retreat, to cry silently when no one is watching? It's not always the memory itself that holds us captive. It's the story we wrapped around it. And more than that, it's who we believe we are because of it. Each of us carries an internal script, a quiet narrative about who we are, what we've lived through, what we're worth. These stories begin early, sometimes shaped by family, culture, religion, and other times simply born from a moment we never fully understood. I'm the one who always gets overlooked. I'm the strong one. I'm the broken one. I'm the one who forgives but is never forgiven. These lines repeat in the background of our thoughts like a silent chant, and we carry them with the same reverence a monk might carry a sacred bowl. But what if the story itself is the weight? There is an old Zen koan about a man who falls into a river and grabs hold of a branch to stay afloat. At first, the branch saves him, but as the current pulls and the bank draws near, the branch becomes the very thing preventing him from reaching shore. To survive, he must release the branch, but the fear is real. If I let go, will I drown? So many of us are like that man, clinging not to life, but to the identity we've crafted through our wounds. Sometimes letting go doesn't just feel like surrender, it feels like self-erasure. That's what makes it so terrifying. When your pain has been with you for so long, it starts to feel like home. But the Buddha, in his deep compassion, saw through this illusion. He taught that all things, including the self, are impermanent, ever shifting. He said, just as a flame blown by the wind goes this way and that, so too is this body and mind subject to change. And he offered not a new identity, but a deeper freedom, that we are not fixed, not defined by our past, not trapped in the stories we once told. Think about that. What if the person you were when the wound was made is no longer here? And what if the one you are now doesn't need to keep carrying it? I once spoke to a widower who for 20 years wore his grief like a cloak. He believed it was how he stayed connected to his late wife, by suffering in her absence. But one evening, he said quietly, "She always loved when I smiled. Why am I honoring her with my sorrow, when joy was what we shared most?" In that moment, he wasn't forgetting her. He was finally releasing the grief as identity and returning to the love itself. So the next time your mind clings tightly to a story, ask gently, is this truth or just familiarity? Is this who I am or who I used to be? And if you begin to loosen your grip, even slightly, you may notice a soft trembling inside. That trembling is not weakness, it's the beginning of freedom. In the next part, we'll explore how the mind creates suffering on top of pain, and what the Buddha called the second arrow, a teaching that changes everything. Let's take a deeper breath and continue when you're ready. Part 4. The second arrow. When pain becomes suffering, pain is inevitable. But suffering, that's something we add. You stub your toe. It hurts. That's pain. But then before you even know it, your mind kicks in. Why am I always so clumsy? What's wrong with me? Now the pain has multiplied. This is the second arrow. In one of his most tender and relatable teachings, the Buddha shared a metaphor so simple, yet so transformative, that it still echoes in the hearts of practitioners today. He said, When an ordinary person is struck by a painful feeling, they feel two kinds of pain. The first is the pain itself. The second is the suffering they create around it. The first arrow is life, aging, loss, disappointment, a betrayal, an illness. These things are part of being human. No one escapes them, not even the most enlightened among us. But the second arrow, that's different. That's the voice inside that says, this shouldn't be happening, or this is my fault, or I will never be okay again. And that second arrow, as the Buddha knew, often does more damage than the first ever could. Let me tell you a simple story. There was a retired teacher I once met. Her name was Miriam. In her late 60s, she had spent decades nurturing young minds, guiding them, giving her whole heart to her work. But after retirement, she began to feel forgotten. Former students stopped visiting. Her days grew quiet. One day, in the stillness of her living room, she whispered, "It's like none of it mattered." She was struck by the first arrow, loneliness, a very human sorrow. But the second arrow pierced even deeper. If they've forgotten me, maybe I was never important. Maybe I'm just disappearing. The Buddha would say, the pain of being forgotten is real, but the suffering, the story that says you were never valuable, is something the mind adds. And once we believe that story, we relive the pain again and again, not because it's happening now, but because we keep shooting ourselves with the second arrow. So how do we stop? The first step is awareness, not resistance, not force, just knowing. When aversion is present, the Buddha said in the Satipatthana Sutta, one knows. There is aversion, that's all. One knows. We begin not by fixing the mind, but by witnessing it. Here's that familiar ache. Here's the anger. Here's the fear. When we observe without judgment, something softens. It's like watching a storm from the safety of a window, rather than being caught in the downpour. But of course, even when we know it's the second arrow hurting us, we still cling. Why? Why do we keep tightening our grip? Even when we see the damage it causes, there's something deeper still, a primal fear, buried in the very act of letting go. A fear not just of pain, but of vanishing, of being no one. In the next part, we'll gently uncover that fear, what truly lies beneath our resistance, and explore the Buddha's insight into how the mind confuses letting go with disappearing. Let's keep going together. Part 5. When letting go feels like losing yourself. If I release this, then who am I? It sneaks in quietly. You begin to loosen your grip on the past, to soften your hold on the stories you've carried for so long. And then, almost out of nowhere, a voice inside whispers, wait, if I let go of this, what's left of me? There's a hidden fear inside the act of letting go, a fear far deeper than the pain itself. And it's this, that in releasing what we've held on to for so long, we might lose the very person we've become. Think about it. So many of our identities are forged in the fire of experience. The child who grew up without approval becomes the one who always needs to prove herself. The man who was betrayed becomes the one who never trusts again. The parent who sacrificed everything becomes the one who is always needed. And over time, these roles become us. We don't just carry our pain, we begin to become it. There's a story from the Buddhist tradition about a monk who visited a renowned master. The monk asked for guidance, saying, I've studied the sutras, memorized the teachings, and renounced worldly life, but I still feel burdened. What am I missing? The master looked at him quietly and said, Put it down, the monk replied. But what should I put down? And the master answered, that which is asking the question. It's a teaching so subtle, many miss its power. It wasn't about abandoning the body or rejecting the mind. It was about recognizing that even the self-image of the seekers must be released. Sometimes, what we're most attached to is the very person we believe we must be. I once sat with a woman, Elaine, who spent years in therapy trying to overcome the grief of losing her daughter. Her home was filled with pictures, candlelit corners, handwritten poems. She said, "I don't know who I'd be without my sorrow. If I stop grieving, am I still her mother?" Her love was pure, but her identity had become wrapped around her suffering. The Buddha understood this. He saw that even spiritual progress could become a trap when the self clings to being the one who is awakened. That's why he warned, even the Dhamma must be let go of. Like a raft used to cross a river, it is not meant to be carried after. Alaggadopama Sutta. True letting go is not erasure. It's not a rejection of memory, love, or meaning. It's the gentle unbinding of self from suffering. It's realizing that you can still love someone and not be defined by their absence. You can remember what hurt without being ruled by it. So here's the quiet question to sit with tonight. What part of yourself feels too fragile to release? What identity have you mistaken for your essence? The fear of disappearing is strong, but beyond it, there's something even more vast. Not a void, but a presence so quiet, so alive, it needs no name. All's in the next part. We'll explore how Buddhist practice shifts from struggle to softness, from trying to force letting go, to learning the wisdom of not clenching. A path not of effort, but of gentle awareness. When you're ready, we'll take that step together. Part 6. The wisdom of not clenching, letting go without force. You don't need to force the release. You only need to feel the burn. Most of us try to let go like someone trying to pry open a locked door, using willpower, affirmations, even frustration. And true release never comes from tension. It comes from knowing, from seeing, from not clenching. In the modern world, we're taught to push through, get over it, move on. These phrases sound strong, but in reality, they're often just more ways we try to fight what we're feeling, like someone punching at smoke or trying to hold water in their hands. But Buddhist practice offers a radically different approach. Instead of battling the mind, we observe it. Instead of trying to delete memories, we witness them gently. The goal isn't to force the coal out of your hand, it's to feel the heat so clearly that you can't help but drop it. Imagine holding a piece of burning charcoal in your palm. It hurts. But instead of throwing it away, you analyze it, give it a name, try to convince yourself that it's not hot, or worse, that you deserve the pain. That's what we often do with emotional suffering. We carry the burn because we think we must. But the moment you truly feel it, not just think about it, not judge it, but feel it, your hand releases on its own. That's the nature of awareness. It doesn't try to let go. It realizes there's no need to hold on. The Buddha said it simply, when the mind is fully aware, clinging ceases on its own. There's a Taoist concept called Wu Wei. It means action without force. It's not laziness or indifference. It's the effortless unfolding of response that comes when we stop resisting the truth of what is. Like a river that flows around the rock without effort, or a tree that bends with the wind instead of breaking. I met a man once, a veteran who had carried silent trauma for decades. He had tried every method to let go of the past. Nothing worked until, during meditation, he allowed himself to feel the tightness in his chest without naming it. Just feel it, not as a warrior, not as a victim, but as a human being. In that moment, tears came, not as a breakdown, but as a release. No words, just space. And for the first time, he said, the past felt like something behind him, not wrapped around him. You don't need to be strong to let go. You need to be present. Not by force, but by attention, by staying close to the flame, without fear, until your hand knows, this is not mine to carry anymore. So the next time pain rises, don't ask, how do I get rid of this? Ask instead, can I feel this fully, without flinching? And in that quiet feeling, in that breath of honesty, something ancient begins to loosen. With the next part, we'll explore the final and most subtle trap, the one that hides even in the act of letting go, the clinging to spiritual identity. What happens when the one who lets go becomes the new mask? Let's keep walking with tenderness. The journey is not over yet. Part 7. The ego in disguise. When letting go becomes a new clinging, even letting go can become something the ego holds onto. You're meditating more, you're catching your thoughts before they spiral, you've dropped old grudges, you feel lighter. But then, a whisper sneaks in. I'm doing it, I've transcended this, I've let go. And just like that, the ego returns, dressed in robes. It's perhaps the most delicate trap on the spiritual path and the hardest to see. Once we begin to experience peace, to soften the knots in our chest, a new identity often slips in unnoticed. I am now the one who has let go. It feels noble, serene, even righteous. But underneath it is the same clinging, the same self. The Buddha warned of this with a powerful image. He spoke of the Dhamma, the path to liberation, as a raft used to cross a river. Once you've crossed, he said, you must leave the raft behind. To carry it with you, out of sentiment or pride, is unnecessary. The Dhamma is like a raft meant to help you cross over, not to cling to. Majjhima Nikaya 22. Spiritual pride is the golden chain. It's softer, more beautiful than the iron ones we wore before, but it binds us just the same. There's a Zen tale that speaks to this. A student comes to a master, eyes glowing with progress. I no longer react with anger, he says. I forgive. I let go. I think I'm close to awakening. The master simply replies, you've only moved the fire into the basement. This is the heart of the illusion that we can escape clinging by polishing it, spiritualizing it, dressing it in silence and smiles. But clinging is clinging, even if it looks like wisdom. I once met a retired therapist who had helped countless people heal, but quietly he had begun to see himself only through that role. If I'm not helping, he asked, who am I? Even his goodness had become a mask. And when his health declined and he could no longer serve as he once had, he fell into quiet despair, not from losing purpose, but from losing identity. His final lesson came not from more service, but from sitting still and being no one. Buddhism doesn't ask us to be holy, it asks us to be free, not to wear a perfect image of peace, but to release all images, even the sacred ones. True equanimity isn't about rising above life. It's about being so open that nothing leaves a scar. As the Dhammapada teaches, the wise one lets go of the lesser for the greater. But once the greater is realized, even that is released. So ask yourself, am I letting go, or am I performing peace? There is no shame in seeing the ego return. The path is not straight. But when we notice gently, honestly, without judgment, we take another step toward true freedom. In the next and final part, we'll return to the beginning. What truly remains when you've let go of everything? Is it emptiness or something far more alive? The answer is where silence becomes sacred. We'll meet there when you're ready. Part 8. What remains when you truly let go? Is there anything left when I release it all? We've walked a long way together through craving, identity, pain and release. And now we stand before the most tender question of all. If I let go of my past, my pain, even the image of myself, what's left? Do I become nothing, empty? This fear of emptiness is ancient. It lives in every human heart. We imagine that if we truly let go of our stories, our identities, our roles, we'll fall into a cold silence, a kind of void. But the emptiness spoken of in Buddhism is not the absence of life, it's the clearing away of what blocks life from flowing freely. The Pali word sunyata, often translated as emptiness, doesn't mean nothingness. It means freedom from fixed form, freedom from being trapped inside any one story. Imagine your mind as a cluttered room filled with heavy furniture, dusty boxes of memory, old labels you no longer need. Letting go doesn't destroy the room. It opens the windows, it lets the light back in. The Buddha once said, "Just as the sky does not cling to the passing cloud, the awakened mind does not cling to thoughts, to feelings, to form." This sky-like mind is what remains when all else falls away. Not a blankness, but a vastness. Not numbness, but the pure capacity to feel without drowning. I once sat with a man in his 70s, Harold. He had lost his wife, then later, one of his sons. For a long time, he carried grief like a sacred burden. But over time, as he practiced mindfulness, something changed. He said to me, "The sadness is still there, but it doesn't own me. It passes through like wind through leaves. I still cry sometimes, but I no longer think it means I'm broken." What remained in him wasn't despair. It was space, gentle, loving space. When our hands are clenched in fear, we can neither receive nor give. But when they open softly, without demand, we can offer comfort without needing anything in return. That's where metta, loving kindness, and karuta, compassion, are born, not from holding on, but from letting be. And here lies the quiet miracle. When we let go fully, we don't become empty, we become clear, like a stream unblocked, like a bell that finally rings true. We begin to feel the world more intimately, not less. We love more deeply, not because we need to, but because there's room to. The path the Buddha offered was never about becoming detached or indifferent. It was about becoming free enough to care without fear. So what remains when you let go? A presence so vast it can hold any sorrow. A stillness so full it overflows with life. Not a void, but the true, open-hearted you. And the good news, you don't have to be fully awakened for this to begin helping. You don't need to let go perfectly. You only need to notice what you're holding and soften just a little. Even now, in this moment, you can pause and ask, what am I holding that no longer holds me? That question is not an end, it's a door. And on the other side of that door is peace, always waiting, always patient, always yours. Do you remember that quiet moment we began with? The stillness of the night. The echo of a thought, that small ache in the heart that wouldn't loosen. Maybe, just maybe, that moment wasn't asking to be fixed. Maybe it was asking to be seen. You see, letting go isn't something we achieve. It's something that happens when we stop gripping so tightly, when we stop wrestling with what was and begin to rest in what is. No one ever tells you this. You don't have to let go all at once. Sometimes it's enough to notice the clenching, to sit beside it like an old friend, to breathe near it, not to change it, but to understand it. The Buddha didn't offer escape. He offered a lantern, a way of seeing, a path of returning, not to some distant goal, but to the quiet clarity that's always been inside you. And so maybe tonight, you don't have to do anything. Maybe just sit for a moment longer, with your hands slightly less closed, your heart a little more willing to rest. That would be enough. Thank you for being here truly. If this reflection has touched something in you, treat it like a small seed. Don't rush to plant it. Just hold it gently and let it bloom in its own time. May peace find you, not because you chased it, but because you stopped running. And tomorrow, perhaps, your hands will open just a little more, and your heart, too.